Hi there, I'm Blackbright, and I am just going to do a quickie regarding the coronavirus. Everybody back to work today, more or less, with some health measures in place to make sure or to restrict the spread. But it is still sending a contradictory message to the majority of us. I mean, on the one hand, you're telling people that, cinemas are open, go to your pubs, you go out now. It's just almost like everything's back to normal. Then on the second hand, you're saying, oh, if you go into a place where where there's no tables or seated, you don't have to wear a mask. Otherwise, you do. And then they're talking about going back to work, but keeping the 2 meter distancing. I mean, it's absolutely chaotic as far as I can see. The presumption is what they're saying is that you go to the pub, you're supposed to. I would have thought that if you're in close proximity, you're from the same household, that I would have thought the bubble still applies. But they're not talking about the bubble anymore. They're not saying that you have bubbles of people going to the pubs or going to restaurants. They're just talking about, oh, it's open. And then on top of it, if you go to a restaurant on a Monday, Tuesday, and a Wednesday, participating restaurants get 50% off. You pay 50% of the bill. So they're more or less encouraging people now to go back and to boost the economy. It's really quite bizarre because the thing is, the Office of National Statistics is now saying that there's 4,200 cases a day. You don't hear so much about people dying though, which is good. But we are hearing about the cases, and when you think about the variants of how the coronavirus hits you, it can either be quite mild, like a cold, a cough, a hiccup, or it could be quite extreme where you have respiratory concerns. But we do not know the extent of each case that is reported. All we're told about 4,200 cases every day. And this is supposed to be the second wave, and whether or not it's one continuous wave, we do not know. All we know is that we're in the middle of all of this stuff and we are just trying to make sense of it. Some of us are concerned, some, a lot of these businesses have just forked out. I mean, I went to have a pedicure on Saturday. I was amazed at how beautiful the salon was. I mean, before it was almost like they didn't care. It was almost like you take what we give you. So we went in there, the chairs were all kind of half broken. The floor didn't look very nice. It was, but you would go because it was the place that you went to do your nails or your pedicures. My God, when I went on there on Saturday, all the floor had been tiled, all these white shiny tiles, the walls had been painted, all new sinks, new chairs, new tables. You buy a mask if you don't come with one for £1. In the pedicure bowl, they've got a plastic bag, like a disposable bag, so your feet doesn't actually touch the bowl itself, and they throw away that bag at the end of it. I noticed that whereas before they were using the same utensil thing, they were washing it this time and everything. I actually got a decent pedicure for the first time in goodness knows how many years. So this COVID or coronavirus lockdown and making sure that companies and organisations improve their hygienic, their public health, their public health things. Can't think of the word now. But it is work to our advantage as a consumer. So yes, they've had to fork out. And what I was saying is that when they've, like that one, they forked out and they said, okay, we have to now charge you more. So whereas we were paying £19 for a pedicure, I mean, in some cases it's 23, now you're paying 25. But I would prefer to pay £25 for a better experience and a cleaner environment than to go to that old environment where it looked absolutely disgusting. And we went there because as far as we were concerned, there were little options locally. So what they reckon, there's not going to be another lockdown, which is good. The economy is supposed to be trying to get up there, but you kind of wonder whether or not now they're trying to get this herd immunity. because so many people are getting it. They are bringing more and more people in and to interact with each other. People are not all following the social distancing measures. And I don't really like the idea of these local lockdowns because I think they could be quite biased. I mean, unless they're telling people the truth from the outset, which is majority of Asians are affected, East Asians are affected by the virus. When they say black and minority ethnics, predominantly 75%, roughly around that, are Asian. And there's only a small minority of blacks, but they do lump them all in under one umbrella. So you're looking at areas where it's predominantly Asian that they're shutting down. And, I think it would be better to say to these individuals, if that is the reason why, I mean, and if statistics do evidence that it is East Asians or Asians who are disproportionately affected by the coronavirus, and because of that, we are closing these particular areas, then I think it would make more sense to the individuals. But at the moment, we do not know. These local lockdowns that are happening, I hear the next one's going to be Manchester and goodness knows what. I don't know what the rate of black and minority ethnics is in Manchester, or what parts of Manchester they're going to lock down, or whether it's going to be the whole of Manchester so it doesn't look discriminatory. But I think if you're honest, and I think, the government is too politically correct. They don't want to tread on anybody's toes. And by not wanting to tread on other people's toes, they're causing a lot of a lack of understanding. I'm sure if figures prove that Asians are disproportionately affected by the virus, the same way they said blacks were disproportionately affected by the virus, it would help people to understand why certain measures are being put in place. But when they try to group everybody under the same umbrella to make it look like it's a majority of blacks who are disproportionately disadvantaged by the virus, as opposed to saying the facts as it is and breaking it down and letting people know, and then the areas that are specific to that kind of that core set of people who have it, then people would understand. Oh, they'd say, okay, we've got quite a high East Asian population in Bradford or Leicester or wherever these areas are that they're closing down. But to, close down the whole bloody area, nobody knows why, and they're kind of like, what's going on? And yes, it might even seem discriminatory. I mean, it is hard because if you're looking down a particular group of people, that would also seem as though it's discriminatory. But supposing those people understood that, look, we're not trying to be funny here, but look, I can show you the evidence. This is how we see it. And this is what you need to do. I'm sure it would help them take more protective actions. And if they thought that by their behaviour of not social distancing or whatever it is that might be reintroducing that community transmission, then they'd be more likely to say, oh, well, gosh, we didn't realise that. Nobody told us that. And then they could do their own measures and try to combat it. But when everything's under wraps and things are kind of done so people aren't discriminating, and you don't know whether you're coming or going, and you don't know why this town is locked down and that town is locked down, and you can't kind of come to your own conclusions, it's much more dangerous. They've got the statistics. Tell people the truth as it is, because it would save a lot of grief and it would help people to understand why it's happening and what is happening. And with regard to the local lockdown, say, for example, they decided to lock down Berry Park, but they don't lock down Birmingham. People in Berry Park are going to say, why the hell are you locking us down and you're not locking down Birmingham? What the bloody hell's going on? Are you discriminating against us? Do you want some of this? And they can get all aggressive and hostile. But if they can show genuine figures and people can be transparent and tell people the truth about what is happening. I mean, the SARS virus, 99% of East Asians were killed by that SARS virus. It seemed to target East Asians more than anyone else. We don't know if it's because lack of vitamin D. We don't know if it's because we don't know what it is. We do not know what it is. But whatever it is, that was a reality. Those was what the statistics showed. So if you can take that information and say, okay, it's similar with the coronavirus. It just seems to be targeting majority of Asians, and blacks are in it as well. Maybe they're blacks with maybe Asian genes or something. We do not know because they're not letting us know what's what. And I think it'd be much better if they were more honest and open. I mean, when they was asking about the report, the Black and Minority Ethnic Report, and they asked it to be open and transparent and for people to see the report, they're taking bits out of it. They're taking chunks out of it. So when they're doing that, it makes people suspicious. It makes people wary. Why is the report not comprehensive? Why are you extracting bits out of it? What is it that you don't want us to know? What are you hiding? That's what causes problems. That's what causes concern. An open, honest debate would be much more healthier than all this surreptitious nonsense and all this sneaking around and hiding information. Anyway, yeah, now they're talking about over 50s to self-isolate. I mean, really, really, and really, they're supposed to be on lockdown. Anybody over 50? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Over 50 with underlying conditions, yes. You might want to lock them down, but you can't make a blanket statement about over 50 must be on lockdown. How ridiculous and how unfair. And that's what I'm talking about. You know, just be honest. If there are people over 50 dying, why are they dying? Do they have underlying symptoms? If they have underlying symptoms, the same way you extended those who had low immunity and they had to isolate themselves longer, the same way you do for the over 50s. You don't stop them from flying and travelling and doing all that stuff when there's nothing wrong with them. They have no underlying symptoms. You know, it just makes me feel as though they're targeting a certain group of people, trying to affect their mental health, trying to, ultimately so that they get ill and finally become a self-fulfilling prophecy and die. That's what it comes like to me. Now, those over 50s who have underlying conditions are more likely to understand if they say, okay, you're over 50, you have underlying conditions, I'm ever so sorry, but for this time period, you have to be on lockdown. You cannot do A, B, C, D, and E. They'd understand. But how do you make sense when you're doing a blanket statement across the board, everyone over 50 is on lockdown? It's not right. And then what happens to young people who have low immune systems or they have some underlying conditions? Are they on lockdown? I don't hear anybody talking about people because they've lifted the shielding. So that means those people who had low immune systems, who had to be shielded and stay, they can mix around all of a sudden with all these people who may be asymptomatic and might have the virus, and these people who were previously shielded could get it. And yet they can travel, they can do left, right and centre, while the people over 50 could be more healthier than those young people with immunity problems. They have to be on lockdown. Does that make sense? But does any of this make sense? That's what I'm saying. they're sending all these mixed messages that don't make sense. And it just makes you think, are they deliberately trying to confuse the public? What is it they are? What is their agenda? Is it to create confusion? And why do they want to create confusion? And why do they want to pit one group against the other? Why do they want to create resentment amongst people? Because that's what they do by being discriminatory in their practices, and that is what they're doing. They need to have a logical reason why they're taking these steps. And yes, we understand it's to keep people safe. So you have a logical way. People in certain areas, if the figures show that, I don't know if they do, but what I've heard, but if the figures show that the coronavirus, similar to the SARS virus, disproportionately affects East Asians or Asians, then this is the reason why we're locking down the area. The over 50s, if you've got underlying conditions, this is the reason why you have to be locked down. People of any age with underlying conditions, actually it should even be over 50. It should be anyone with underlying conditions have to be on lockdown if you're worried about them catching it. And it just pees me off, because when it doesn't make sense, it makes me feel that there is something else, an underlying reason why these processes and what we're hearing in the news and stuff. And I don't like that, because it's totally unnecessary. The people who are making these plans are intelligent people, or meant to be intelligent. If they're in those positions, they should have a certain amount of intelligence, and they should have a certain amount of rationale, and they should be able to explain to us in a cohesive manner that is, reasonable and appropriate and relevant, and let us know what category and what classification is going to be affected by the lockdown. It's simple. Keep it simple and honest and open. That's all you've got to do. We're not asking you to move mountains. We're just asking you to be transparent. And that's all I've got to say. Bye-bye.